Blood streaked down Kalen Drax's temple as two towering guards hauled him across the polished black floor, their clawed feet clicking with every step. His unit had been ambushed in the void between stars. What should have been a routine recon run at the edge of Dominion territory turned into a massacre. Now he was the last man standing, dragged into the heart of the enemy's citadel. The throne room stretched impossibly high, its crystalline walls refracting light into shards of violet and blue that danced like fire across the obsidian. Sentinels lined the chamber in perfect formation, their armored exoskeletons gleaming under the glow of hovering bioluminescent spheres. And at the far end, she rose from her throne, Queen Zyra. Unlike her insectoid warriors, she was startlingly humanoid. Tall, poised, her curves carried a commanding presence that unsettled Kalen even before she spoke. Her skin shimmered in deep purple tones that shifted as she moved, like living starlight sliding across her form. Long crimson hair spilled past her shoulders, framing a face whose beauty was as alien as it was undeniable. Her eyes, black voids broken only by violet rings that pulsed faintly, locked on him. He forced himself not to look away. So this is the human spy who dared trespass. Her voice filled the chamber, melodic yet sharp, sliding into his mind as though it belonged there. "I'm no spy," Kalen growled, blood wetting his jaw. "I'm a soldier." He twisted against the restraints, but the guard's grip tightened. Zyra descended from her throne with the grace of a predator. The room's silence made her movements thunderous. Even her own courtiers seemed to shrink when she passed. Fear clung to the air like smoke. "Remove his armor," she ordered. Kalen's heart thumped as his tactical plates were torn away. Soon he stood in only his undersuit, muscles marked by old battles, burns, deep gashes, scars that whispered of survival against impossible odds. Zyra's gaze lingered over each one until her slender fingers touched the longest scar streaking across his chest. "This wound nearly ended you," she murmured, as though she'd been there when it happened. "Yet you endured." Her touch sent a shiver through him, an involuntary betrayal of his body. Heat rose under his skin, mingling shame with anger. He clenched his teeth. "Humans are resilient," she continued, fingers tracing lower, over the ridges of his abdomen, lingering too long. Gasps and whispers rippled through the watching court as their queen leaned close, lips curling into something between hunger and triumph. "This human is mine. Not to be executed. Not to be imprisoned. Mine." The declaration echoed against the vaulted walls, and Kalen's stomach twisted. Murmurs rose like waves, some shocked, others resigned. But all bent to her will. "Take him to my chambers," Zyra commanded. "Tend to his wounds." As he was dragged away, Kalen's mind raced. Torture. Interrogation. Some strange Dominion ritual. He tried to anchor himself to duty, to discipline. He was Earth's soldier. He would not break. Yet the echo of her whisper clung to him like fire. The royal chambers defied his expectations of captivity. Instead of a cell, he was brought into a vast room draped with fabrics that shimmered as though alive, changing hue with the angle of light. A bed large enough to fit a squad rested at its center, veiled in translucent silk. Attendants moved silently, cleansing and patching his wounds with surprising care. Their eyes darted at him, curious yet cautious, before lowering again without words. "Why am I here?" Kalen demanded, voice sharp. Silence met him, only the rustle of fabric answering. Hours later, the queen herself entered, her presence bending the room around her. She had shed her formal regalia for a gown so thin it seemed spun from mist, clinging to her figure in ways that made Kalen's breath hitch despite himself. "You must be confused," she said softly, approaching the bed where he sat restrained by glowing energy cuffs. "My name is Kalen Drax," he cut in. "Commander, Earth Defense Force. If you want information, forget it. I'll die before I betray my people." Zyra's laughter rang out like chiming glass. "Information? If I wanted secrets, there are faster ways than this." She gestured at the opulent room. No, Commander. I want something else entirely. Her violet gaze burned into him as she circled, studying him like a weapon she might wield. My dominion faces extinction. Generations of inbreeding have weakened us. Our science tells us there is only one solution, genetic renewal. And then came humanity. His breath stilled. He saw where this was going before she even spoke the words. You are not here as a prisoner, Kaelin. You are here as my chosen mate. He jerked against his restraints, fury igniting. You think I'll just... She silenced him with a raised hand, her expression serene but edged with steel. You will. Because I have decided it. With a flick of her wrist, the cuffs clicked open, the glow vanishing. You could have been executed today. Instead, I offer you power at my side. As your breeding stud, Kaelin spat, though his chest tightened as her hand brushed across it again. As my consort, she corrected smoothly, settling onto the bed beside him. Father of the new dominion. Her fingers traced the map of scars across his skin, each touch kindling sparks he fought to smother. His will screamed resistance, yet his body betrayed him, muscles taut, pulse quickening. And if I refuse, he forced out. You won't, she whispered, lips grazing his ear. Your body has already answered what your mind denies. Her breath was warm, her skin electric where it pressed against his. Every instinct told him to fight, but another voice, a quieter, darker one, urged surrender. His hands, unbidden, rose to meet her form, fingers brushing the alien curve of her waist. This is madness, he breathed. This is evolution, she countered, capturing his lips with hers. And in that kiss, something inside Kaelin shattered and reformed, binding him to a fate he hadn't chosen but could no longer escape. The days blurred together in a haze of confusion, temptation, and politics. At first, Kaelin resisted. He fought against the Queen's touches, against the way her voice seemed to weave into his bloodstream like music he couldn't silence. But the palace was a labyrinth designed to wear him down. Each corridor echoed with whispers about him, each pair of alien eyes followed him with curiosity, suspicion, or outright hostility. By night, Queen Zyra pressed closer. She slid into his space with the effortless grace of a predator, testing his boundaries, unraveling them strand by strand. At first, he thought it was only seduction. Then came her revelation, her people's survival depended on him. Our genome weakens every cycle, she confessed one evening, pacing before the great bed. Light from the hovering orbs painted her purple skin in shifting shades. Diseases once banished have returned. Strength fades from our bloodlines. But you're kind, resilient, adaptive. The scans are undeniable. You are the key. Kaelin clenched his fists. You want a child. Her violet eyes glowed as she smiled. Not just a child. A future. You and I together, proof that the Dominion can endure. Her words landed heavier than chains. Yet what unsettled him most was the seed of truth blooming in his chest. He wasn't repulsed. Part of him was curious. Another part, buried deeper, was already captivated. The court, however, was less enchanted. Whispers turned to open mutterings. In the council chambers, murmurs echoed that the queen had lost her mind. Some saw Kaelin as a prize worth exploiting. Others, an abomination. And from the shadows, one voice rose louder than the rest, Lord Kryn. He was pale lavender, his features sharp as broken glass, his words cutting twice as deep. Your Majesty, he sneered during a private assembly, to take a human to your bed is to spit upon our ancestors. Our traditions are older than their species. Traditions that have failed us, Zyra shot back, her voice echoing with authority. Or do you deny our decline? Kryn's expression curdled, but he said no more. Still, Kaelin caught the venom in his eyes. This wasn't mere disagreement. It was hatred. The warnings came quietly. Lyra, the queen's most trusted handmaiden, slipped into Kaelin's quarters while he dressed one morning. Her blue skin seemed to melt into the shadows, her voice barely above a whisper. "You must be careful," she urged. "There are those who would see you dead before they let you stand beside her." Kaelin's instincts sharpened. "Who?" "House Kryn," she answered, eyes darting nervously. "They believe you taint the Dominion. And they are not alone." He nodded grimly. He'd been a soldier too long not to sense danger coiling in the dark. The threat became reality at the Council of Houses. The chamber was a marvel, 12 crystalline seats forming a circle beneath a dome that caught the starlight, refracting it into dazzling colors. At the center, Queen Zyra took her throne, Kaelin at her side. The debate erupted instantly. "Human blood will corrupt us." Kryn roared. "Human blood will save us." Zyra countered, her voice unwavering. Kaelin felt the tension building like a storm. His soldier's instincts pricked at the edges of his awareness. A subtle flicker in the shadows above, too deliberate. "Down," he barked, shoving Zyra aside just as a crackling bolt of energy cut through the air. It sizzled past where her chest had been moments before, striking the crystalline floor in a burst of sparks. Chaos exploded. Guards surged into the chamber, weapons drawn. More bolts rained from above. Kaelin moved without thought, his body shielded Zyra's. He rolled them both behind a pillar as guards retaliated. The assassin was dragged from the rafters moments later, a soldier from House Kryn's own retinue. The chamber fell into stunned silence. "You saved me," Zyra whispered, eyes locked on him. Her voice trembled, for once stripped of its usual command. "Instinct," Kaelin muttered, chest heaving. "No," she corrected, taking his hand and pressing it over her abdomen. Her gaze blazed with meaning. "You protected your future." The words rippled through the chamber louder than the attempted assassination had. In that instant, Kaelin realized he wasn't just her prisoner, or her chosen mate, or even her political gamble. He was now her shield, her weapon, her claim to survival, and whether he wanted it or not, the court knew it too. The price of his choice would not just be his life. It would be history itself. The assassination attempt changed everything. Overnight, Kaelin Drax went from curiosity to symbol, from outsider to lightning rod. Some Xanthians now hailed him as hero, the man who had saved their queen's life. Others whispered his name like a curse, a stain upon their bloodlines. And at the heart of it all stood Queen Zyra, her hand never straying far from his, as though daring her court to deny her claim. General Vaynar, commander of the Dominion armies, was one of the few who treated Kaelin with respect from the start. Soldier to soldier, he saw the scars, the instinct, the battlefield cunning that only experience could forge. "You've stirred the hornet's nest," Vaynar told him one morning as they watched warriors drilling in the palace courtyard. The alien soldiers sparred with energy lances, their moves sharp but predictable. "House Kryn bleeds power, and yet you shielded the queen with nothing but your body. That makes you dangerous in ways they cannot control." "Not my intention," Kaelin muttered, watching a warrior stumble under a feint. "But intentions don't count for much, do they?" Vaynar's lips curved into the faintest smile. "No. Results are all that matter." Still, Kaelin felt the weight of betrayal each time he shared tactics from Earth's military archives, small shifts in training strategies that made the Dominion troops more formidable. Zyra promised these techniques would be used only in defense, never against his people. He wanted to believe her. Needed to. Then came the news that shattered whatever balance remained. "The queen is with child," Vaynar said flatly, studying Kaelin's face for any crack in his composure. The word struck harder than any plasma bolt. "She hasn't told me," Kaelin whispered. "She will. Tonight. Our physicians confirmed it. The first hybrid." The general didn't add what he was thinking, that this child could unite a fractured species, or plunge them all into deeper war. That evening, in the quiet of their private garden overlooking the shimmering skyline of the Dominion capital, Zyra guided Kaelin's hand to her still flat stomach. Our child grows strong already, she said, voice soft but fierce. The bond between our genomes is perfect. The physicians dared not hope for such results. Kalen's chest tightened. He had faced death countless times, but this left him shaken in ways no battlefield ever had. So it's true. That's why you chose me. Not for who I am, but for what my body could give you. For the first time, anger flared in Zyra's eyes. At first, yes. Your genetics, your resilience. But now, she gripped his hand tighter, pressing it against her. Now it is more. What has grown between us is more. He stared at her, torn between duty and desire, between the uniform he once wore and the life she was weaving around him. Despite himself, despite every oath he had sworn to Earth, he could not deny the truth rising in him. He loved her. And with that love came fear. What would his people say when they discovered the truth? That their commander, presumed dead, had fathered a half-alien child? They would call it treason. Or worse. That night, long after Zyra had drifted into sleep beside him, Kalen discovered a hidden comms device wedged into a seam of the wall. It had pulsed faintly for weeks, waiting. This time he answered. Commander Drax, a familiar voice whispered through the static. Colonel Rourke. His former commanding officer. We've tracked you. Extraction window opening soon. Sit tight. Kalen stared at the device for a long time. Then he looked at Zyra, her hand still resting protectively over her stomach even in sleep. His choice crystallized in that instant. With a single decisive movement, he crushed the device under his boot until nothing remained but sparks. But fate had other plans. Far below, in the dungeons, Lord Kryn stirred within his cell. A visitor cloaked in shadows entered, a human operative, eyes glinting with cold intent. Earth wants the Queen eliminated, the operative whispered. And you released. Your goals align with ours. Kryn's thin lips curved into a cruel smile. Then help me escape. Together, we will end this heresy. And so two worlds, once separated by stars, now aligned their knives toward the same target. Dawn broke over the capital city in a red haze, ominous as blood. Kalen woke to find Zyra already armored, her face grim. Earth ships have entered our system, she said. Not scouts. A full fleet. His blood ran cold. That's impossible. The nearest outpost is weeks away. They have been planning this, she replied, eyes narrowing. Perhaps with help. Kalen swallowed hard. He explained about the device he had destroyed, about the faint possibility he had unknowingly led them here. For a heartbeat, betrayal darkened her features. Then it passed, replaced by something steadier. We must face them together, she said. Whatever comes. And then the first explosions rocked the palace walls. The palace trembled as planetary defenses lit the skies, volleys of plasma striking at the descending Earth fleet. Sirens wailed through the corridors while attendants scattered, their silken robes trailing like smoke. Kalen Drax sprinted beside Queen Zyra toward the command center, the weight of his choices pressing heavier than the armor he no longer wore. This isn't a rescue mission, he said grimly as reports poured in, breaches along the outer defense ring, enemy dropships landing on the surface. It's an invasion. Zyra's jaw was set like carved stone. Then they will learn the Dominion is not so easily broken. But before they reached the safety of the command chamber, the air itself seemed to crack open with betrayal. An explosion tore through the corridor ahead, scattering crystal shards like shrapnel. Out of the smoke strode Lord Kryn, flanked by Dominion rebels and armored human soldiers. At their head marched Colonel Rourke, Kalen's old commander, his face as cold and hard as the metal at his hip. Commander Drax, Rourke barked, voice echoing in the fractured hall. Stand down. You're being extracted. Kalen stepped instinctively in front of Zyra, blade drawn from a fallen guard. I'm not going anywhere, Colonel. You've been compromised, Rourke snapped. Alien manipulation, Stockholm Syndrome, it doesn't matter. You're coming home. This is my home now, Kalen shot back, the blade steady in his hand. And that's my child she carries. Shock flickered across Rourke's face, quickly curdling into disgust. Then you leave us no choice. The battle that followed was savage and close. Kryn's rebels lunged with shrieks of fury, their weapons clashing against royal guards. Human rifles roared, bolts of white light searing the walls. Kalen and Zyra fought as one, their movements born of nights spent entwined, instincts honed to a shared rhythm. He struck with earthborn ferocity, she with dominion grace, their blades and bodies moving in tandem like a storm-given flesh. When the smoke cleared, Kryn lay dead, his pale eyes frozen in eternal rage. Colonel Rourke knelt disarmed, breath ragged, his weapon kicked beyond reach. Listen to me, Kalen urged, chest heaving, sweat and blood streaking his scarred skin. This war serves no one. The Dominion needs human strength. Humanity could learn from their knowledge. There's a path here, through us. Through mongrel bloodlines. Rourke spat. Zyra stepped forward, regally composed despite the dust and fire clinging to her armor. Her palm rested over her belly. Through family. This child will be heir to both worlds. Will you deny it the right to exist? Silence fell, heavy and brittle. The sound of distant bombardment shook the ground, yet no one spoke until the fleet commander's voice thundered over comms, demanding an update. Rourke's eyes flicked from Kalen to Zyra, then to the ruin around them. Slowly, with the weight of generations on his shoulders, he raised the calm, "Admiral, this is Colonel Rourke. I'm with Commander Drax. And his wife, Queen Zyra. Request immediate ceasefire for diplomatic negotiations." The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. 3 months later, aboard a neutral space station orbiting between Earth and Dominion territory, history was rewritten. Representatives from both sides signed the Hybrid Accord, a fragile peace forged from blood, love, and desperation. At its heart stood Kalen and Zyra, her pregnancy now visible, their clasped hands a living symbol of what was possible. "They call it the Hybrid Accord," General Vaynar remarked, scrolling through endless news feeds. "Not elegant. But accurate. History will refine it," Zyra said confidently, her other hand resting on Kalen's. "What matters is that it holds." Later, in their private quarters aboard the station, Kalen traced his hand over the swell of her stomach, feeling the faint kick of their unborn daughter. "From prisoner to peace broker," he said with a crooked smile. "Not the career path I imagined." Zyra's violet eyes glowed with a warmth that no council chamber or battlefield had ever shown him. "When I first saw you in chains, I claimed you before my court. I whispered mine. I didn't know then how true those words would become." Their lips met in a kiss heavy with promise. Outside the viewport, ships from both fleets drifted in cautious harmony, no longer enemies but uneasy neighbors, perhaps soon allies. What had begun as captivity had transformed into something neither species could have foreseen, a future where us and them slowly blurred into we. And in Queen Zyra's womb, the first child of that future stirred, destined to inherit not just one world, but the stars themselves. So there it is, the story of Kalen Drax and Queen Zyra, a tale that began with blood and chains but ended with an accord strong enough to shift the course of two civilizations. What started as a brutal war between Earth and the Dominion transformed into the birth of something neither side had dared to dream of, unity. Think about it. A single choice, Kalen refusing to bend, Zyra refusing to let go, ignited change on a scale that generals and admirals had failed to achieve for decades. One human commander and one alien queen stood against tradition, betrayal, and even full-scale invasion to prove that peace wasn't just possible, it was necessary. And here's the twist that makes this story worth remembering: they didn't win through superior firepower, or cunning strategy, or even sheer survival. They won because they created a bond that was undeniable. A bond strong enough to terrify enemies, inspire allies, and demand a different future. The hybrid accord might not be perfect. History tells us that peace treaties rarely are. But in this moment, in this fragile truce carved out of love and loss, a seed was planted. A seed that might one day grow into a galaxy where humanity and the Dominion fight not against each other, but side by side. If you've been hooked by this journey, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story I bring to life. Drop a like if you want to see more tales of strange alliances and impossible love, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that even in the darkest wars, there's always a chance for hope.